We are going back to the distant past, to a time where great battles were fought, bigger than you can imagine. Courage and skill were crucial, and the army would have been nothing without them. Fighters' talent, tactical outwitting, and stance were clearly demonstrated throughout these periods. On May 12, 1858, the Battle of Little Robe Creek, also known as the Battle of Antelope Hills, took place. It was a sequence of 3 consecutive battles on a single day between the Comanches and the Texas Rangers, militia, and allied Tonkawas. It was also the first time that American or Texas Ranger forces had infiltrated the Comancheria all the way to the Wichita Mountains and the Canadian River, and needless to say, it was a crushing setback for the Comanches. From 1856 to 1858, the Texas frontier was exceptionally brutal and murderous as settlers proceed to push their colonies towards the Comanche heartland, the Comancheria. Important Indian hunting grounds were destroyed, as well as grazing habitat for the Comanche horse herds. The Comanche saw their Comancheria territory being encroached upon by Anglo-Texas immigrants, so they retaliated with a series of savage and murderous attacks into Texas. The United States Army was completely unable to put a stop to the carnage. As a result, Governor Runnels appointed John Salmon Ford, a veteran ranger of the Mexican-American War and frontier Indian fighter, as captain and commander of the Texas Ranger Militia. He allied Indian forces on January 27, 1858, and directed him to carry the battle to the Comanches in the heart of their homeland on the Comancheria. The Comanche were a branch of the Shoshone people that lived around the Upper Platte River in Wyoming. They became a separate tribe soon before 1700, when they split off from the Shoshone as they moved south. This matched with their purchase of a horse from the Spaniards, which provided them with more mobility in their search for new hunting grounds. The large number of women and children adopted into the tribe contributed to their population boom as a separate tribe of their own. Because of the abundance of buffalo as an easy food supply, an influx of Shoshone migrants, and the adoption of significant numbers of women and children taken captive from rival groups, the original Comanche population increased dramatically. As they moved southward into the swath of territory extending from the Arkansas River to the area of central Texas north of the Edwards Plateau, there were more and more of them. Their victory over the Spanish, Mexicans, and early Texans led them to assume that the strategies that had enabled them to succeed, such as persistent raids and thefts against towns, would continue to be effective. This anti-settler violence cost approximately 17 settler lives every mile of Comancheria colonization. Realizing that with Sharp's rifles and modern Colt revolvers he needed additional men, Ford set out to recruit ones he did not have to pay, as he did his rangers and militia. Ford, who had observed Tonkawa atrocities against other Indians, had no issues about hiring cannibals to assist him, as long as they were eating Comanches and not rangers. Ford moved to the Brazos Reservation in what is now Fort Worth, Texas, on March 19, 1858, and enlisted Tonkawa into his army. On May 12, 1858, the first of 3 different clashes between the invading Texas Army and the Comanche happened at daybreak. Ford saw his attack and the entire war as a reaction to Comanche raids on settlers. Ford's troops assaulted the first Comanche camp they located at Antelope Hill on Little Robe Creek in the heart of the Comancheria before daybreak. The Tonkawa requested and received permission to attack the sleeping Comanche lodges, which numbered less than a dozen. The few Comanche women and children who were able to escape the lodges without being slain or taken by the Tonkawa fled for their life, while the few men who survived the initial onslaught strove desperately to conceal their retreat. The second confrontation was not as simple as the first, despite Ford's official reports indicating that the Texans intended to do to the second encampment what they had done to the first. Ford's mixed army advanced and assaulted a relatively big encampment of roughly 70 to 100 lodges farther upriver. Fortunately for the Comanche, after the initial dawn attack on the single campsite, a warrior observed the Texan soldiers moving upriver river and rode quickly to notify the bigger village. As a result, the Comanche were able to undertake a defensive action, protecting their women and children at the expense of many warriors' deaths. The Comanche's famous chief, Coebit's Quasho, Iron Jacket, who claimed to be able to blast arrows astray from their target, was killed in the conflict. In battle, he wore a Spanish coat of mail, which gave him the reputation of invincibility because it clearly shielded him from certain light weapon fire. After receiving warning of the attack on the first small group of lodges a short distance from his encampment, Iron Jacket rallied his men and rode directly in front of the attacking Rangers and Indians, challenging them to individual combat. While this had succeeded in past engagements against adversaries who possessed the formidable weaponry capable of penetrating the armor he wore, it cost him his life at Little Robe Creek. The Comanche's second-in-command was slain by a shot from the Shawnee captain, Chulegua. Ford's lieutenants anticipated him to assault the outnumbered warriors soon after Iron Jacket was killed. They imagined they could kill them, catch or murder the fleeing women and children, and proceed upriver. Ford's lieutenants and Placido were taken by surprise when he ordered the army to stand firm. Ford had noticed activity in the hills above Little Robe Creek and assumed that a big army of Indians was on its way. His intuition may have rescued his soldiers from calamity. Iron Jacket had dispatched messengers to warn and call for assistance, particularly to the nearby encampments, headed by his son Peta Nokona. Cynthia Ann Parker's husband came on the scene with at least 100, if not more, Comanche reinforcements. Recognizing that his warriors' bows and lances could not compete at close quarters with the Rangers' revolvers, and not wanting to repeat his father's mistake, Peter Nokona attempted to lure them into the woods surrounding Little Robe Creek, where the Comanche's legendary skill on horseback and with bows and lances could be put to use, with the woods negating some of the Texans' superior firepower. Regardless of how much he liked the spectacle, Ford had no intention of participating in single combat with a Comanche, permitting any of his troops to do so, or expressing any desire to go out and face a Comanche challenge to single combat. When his Indian friends lost the majority of the battles, Ford put an end to their acceptance of these challenges. Following the conclusion of the single engagements between Tonkawa and Comanche, he initially ordered the Tonkawa to attack the Comanche en masse, trying to entice Peter Nokona to commit his warriors wholesale to combat, at which time Ford would send in his rangers, who possessed vastly superior weaponry. Warriors from Kiowa, Apache, and Comanche encampments were now coming. With the odds stacked against him and ammo running low, Ford decided to call it quits in Antelope Hills. Ford launched an orderly withdrawal and retreated back to Texas around dusk. However, before leaving, he burned the lodges of Iron Jacket's people and destroyed the food supplies and goods, arriving at Camp Runnels on May 21. If you like this video and want more content like this, hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching.